on here, this area is called place actors. And this menu basically has all the stuff that you might want to bring into your level. You got empty actors, empty characters, empty spawns. You got point lights. And you also have the player start. So if you do player start, when you press play, that's where your player is going to start. So let's say if you have a controller, it's going to start where the player start is. On this instance, this is our player start. So if I move it, I can start from back here. So that's for that. Then you have your primitives, trigger box. These are box volumes that, depending on how you code them, let's say I step in here, it triggers something. So this is what the box trigger is used for. And the same thing with the sphere trigger. You got your lights, which we have here. Directional light, which will light your whole scene, as you can see. And as you can see, it says preview. That's because we are in stationary, so you have to bake the lighting. See how up here, when I move the light, it says need to be rebuilt. That's because it wants me to rebuild the lighting. And if I click movable, that will disappear because the lighting is going to be dynamic. Then I'll delete all these lights that I created before. There you go. So now everything is dynamic, as you can see. Then you got the point light, which is an omni light. It gives light everywhere. Then you have the regular spotlight. You have a rectangular light. And this is good like for windows and things like that. Then you have the skylight. And the skylight, what it does is, this scene has already a skylight. So what the skylight does, if I delete it, you see that everything went dark. So what the skylight does is that it fakes global illumination. So it'll grab the colors from the sky and the environment and bring it into your scene. And this every single object has its properties. So here's where you can increase the effect or decrease the effect. And you can also use a specific cube map. So all the HDRI images, you can use them here and it'll change the tone of the scene. So that's what the skylight does. Then we have cinematic, and cinematic brings cameras in your scene, and with these cameras you can create basically cinematics or attach it to characters or any object. Then you have a rail, and the rail works like so. So you select the point and then you press Alt to keep expanding on those. So I'll grab another one. And then what you do is you attach the camera to the rail like so, and then reset the camera and then place the camera where you want it. And basically what this does is, if you grab the rail, you start moving the position of the camera. And this is how you create sequences if you want your camera on your rail. And the same thing for the crane. It does the same thing. It'll move camera around, and all this is going to be animatable, so you can basically create a whole sequence just with these. Then visual effects. Visual effects is where you give your scene different effects. So exponential height fog gives the whole scene a foggy look. So you can increase the density of the fog and you see how the scene is already looking. And then you can say where the fog starts. And well, you just change the properties to your liking, but that's exponential high fog. Right now we have an atmosphere, and that comes from Sky Atmosphere. This is brand new to 4.26. So this is volumetric clouds. Now we have clouds that actually look like clouds, because this is kind of like an image, but these are actual like particles. Then you have the reflection capture, which we have here, and what this does is it'll give you more accurate representation of your reflections. You got reflection in a box shape and a sphere shape, and you have a planar. This is like for water. Then you got decals, and what decals is, let's say you shoot something or a character and you have like a splatter on the ground. These are what you spawn, like let's say the blood splatter with this decals. And that's what visual effects does. It's just more stuff to enhance your scene. And post process is what the name indicates, is a volume that you can change the look of your entire scene. So let's say I go put this volume, and let's, for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to desaturate the whole scene. So I'll get in the volume and let's go to white balance, temperature, and I'll just change the temperature. So now if I get out of the volume, I have my regular view, but when I go in the volume, I go inside. And if you want this effect in the whole scene, there's just a button for that. Instead of you encompassing your whole level with this volume, you just click infinite extend, and it will apply it to your whole scene. And they have like lots of effects for this. We can have, let's say the bloom. You can increase the bloom, and you can see this bloomy day. You can decrease or increase the exposure on your scene. You can increase lens flares. You can see the lens flares on your screen. You can undo depth of field and image effects like vignetting. So you could do all kinds of effects with the post processing. That's what that's for. And it can change the look of your scene drastically. Then we have geometry, and these are called BPMs. Well, back in the day they were called BPMs. Now they're just called geometry boxes, and these you can basically modify. These are useful for certain things, and you can basically do lots of stuff with the modes. So if I go into brush editing, see, I can just select vertice and kind of model it with this and create different things. So those are geometry, the geometry volumes, and it has like spiral cases and all different shapes. Then you got the volumes, which is volumes for all different stuff like culling, light maps, like volumes so that your light maps will render faster, kill volumes for particles, blocking volumes for to stop a player from going to certain areas, trigger volumes. And then when you click all classes, it's just gonna give you a broad list of all the stuff that Unreal carries. And that's what place actor menu is. We're gonna spend a lot of time just selecting stuff from here and from your content browser, and then modifying in the details panel. Then we have the world outliner, and the world outliner contains everything in your scene, including lighting, volumes, player start, and then you see that you have folders, because once you put something in, you can select a couple of assets, right click on it, and then move to and create a folder, and you can create a folder. You can also just right click on the top and then create folder, and you can create folders and pair stuff on it. And that is almost everything that you might want to know. We also have windows, and these basically turn on and turn off all the panels. So if you close everything, you can get everything back up here. And if you deleted everything by mistake, you can just click default editor layout, and it's just going to reset all the views. So then for us, I have placed a couple of folders in the content browser, and I'm going to go into more detail on those. And so I placed a Brushify. These are packs that I own. I have placed them here so that you don't have to create these assets. Just work on your lodge and or on your little scenery. So we're gonna have everything in here. I put another forest collection folder as well. So for this one, I'm just gonna show you here what we have. So we have a map, and this is a testing map, and this is what it's gonna look like. And for us, we are gonna use this template and then build on top of it. So you have this whole world that you can build your level in. So you have all kinds of stuff here. You have roads, you have a lot of assets at your disposal. In the forest collection folder, you have all kinds of debris, trees, and other assets that you can just place in your level, like so. You got trees like these, and you can place them in your level, and then navigate around and, let's say, build your lodge back there, create a whole town if you want. But these are the assets that I provided so that you can just start building right away. And then this terrain was created with these tools. So now is a good time to get into modes. So modes, you have the landscape, the foliage, the brush editing, which I just touched a little bit, and the mesh painting. So for landscape, since we have a landscape, we can modify the landscape. And with this one, you have 3 tabs: manage, sculpt, and paint. So you have the manage, which if I zoom out, you see I have, every time I as my mouse, you're going to see like a little square. These squares mean that that is a section of the map, and you can add maps or delete maps. We're not gonna be using that because I provided this map so that you can just put stuff on top. Then we have the sculpt. Here you can actually use this one. This is to give your terrain variation, so you can increase the size of things. You can use smooth to smoothen the terrain out. You can also use flatten. This makes everything flat. You can also use ramp, and what ramp does is you select this as a ramp, and then when you press add ramp, it'll add a ramp in your level, and then you can continue sculpting on it. And as you can see, every time I do something, this terrain changes the texture, is because this terrain has an automatic texture. So the texture itself will change to rock, and grass, depending on the height of the elevation of your strokes. And then these are all the sculpting tools. You can also use noise. So what noise does is just gives like lots of variations to the terrain. And then you got paint. And what paint lets you do is you can paint on the terrain itself. So we can come here, and let's say we don't want grass up here. We want like a desert type of thing. So you click on it, it'll start compiling the shaders, and then you'll see that I can paint the whole thing. And this shader already has grass. If you want to remove the grass, you click on remove procedural, and you just have to click on this drop down and click here, and then when you click on it, it'll start compiling, and it'll remove all the grass from wherever you don't want it. And they all have different things. You got forest, so you select, click, and it'll compile shaders, and then you can paint different type of textures. And when you zoom out, see that the terrain changes. That's to accommodate for the view of the camera. So it's called like distant fields. So you have all this to play with. You also have, for the terrain, foliage. And what foliage lets you do is paint on the terrain. You just assign a foliage here, click on it, set the terrain. So right now, if I click, it's gonna give me a bunch of trees. I'll drop the density down. Let's say it's to 3. So then when I click and drag, it'll just place random trees wherever I want. And then I could set it to a random yaw or to align with the normal. If I align to the normal, it's just going to follow the slopes of my terrain. If I don't want that, I'll just uncheck align to normal, and I'll just place them straight. And that's how that works. So then you can add, let's say, as many as you want. You click on this one, and then it'll add different let's let's remove this one and let's add this so that you can see it better. So now if I come and do, it'll add both. And if you only want to add one, you just uncheck the one that you don't want to add. And it'll tell you how many instances of that specific tree you have. And this is useful for a lot of things. That you can use this for trees, you can use this for debris. Let's say you got plants, rocks, you can use them for rocks as well. So let's add some rocks. See how I added some rocks there? I can add rocks everywhere, and I'll place them everywhere in the scene where I actually pass my brush through. You can use this for anything. So now we remove, and they'll ask me to remove everything. I'll say yes, remove, yes, and remove. So that's the foliage tab. Then we have the mesh paint, and the mesh paint refers to for static meshes. If you have a mesh that you have applied a texture, and on that texture you added something called vertex paint, that's how you can paint here, which we're not gonna be doing here. I can show you on a bonus video how to use it, but for our purposes we're not going to be using vertex paint. So on the next video I'm going to start importing all the meshes in and start building our lodge and our world.